Hi, I'm Stephen with AlbertaUrbanGarden.ca. On today's episode, we're going to do a complete guide to pepper pruning. If you've been following along this last year, we decided to try pruning hot peppers. The end goal was to produce a pepper bush that would not only produce heavily, but quickly. In this episode, we're going to go through how to prune from start to finish and when to start this process. We started the seeds for the peppers in peat pods on September 20th and potted them on October 7th in red solo cups. Growing them under standard CFL shop lights for most of the winter, they grew very well. Watering was done by adding the water to the tray below them and allowing the soil and the plant to wake up what it needed as it needed it. This promotes deep root development and keeps pests such as fungus gnats down, as the surface of the soil is very rarely wet. It also helps keep the leaves dry, which again assists in keeping potential pests away. Watering is done when the pot is light when picked up. This is typically on a weekly basis in my home, however, this will vary based on the plant size and humidity in the home. The first pruning was completed on November 16th. This was the first time that we clipped right back to the first two sets of true leaves. This caused the peppers to send new shoots from the growth nodes found at the leaves, essentially creating two new main stems. The following pruning sessions happened when the plants got large enough, wanted to flower, or had too many branches crossing the center. On average, this happened every 3 to 4 weeks. Finally, in April, we hacked back one more time to bring the plant under control. By spring, the peppers were too large for the CFL grow lights and were moved to a southwest-facing window. Although in the natural light for a few weeks, we still needed to adjust them to being outside. The sun outside is much stronger than any grow light, and windows typically filter it. We hardened off the pepper plants by slowly adding more direct sunlight once the threat of frost had gone. 2 weeks after starting the transition outside, we planted the peppers in their final home. They were put directly into the main garden bed to allow the plant the best chance for growth. The spot was selected based on the maximum exposure of direct sunlight and heat. 4 weeks after planting, we were harvesting our first peppers, and we continued to do so, a few every day, as they became ripe. At the end of July, we pulled the rest of the ripe ones in. In all, we were able to harvest just over 50 Super Hungarian hot peppers, well ahead of any of the rest of our peppers in the garden. The plant should produce one more smaller crop before freeze-up, adding to the rewards of this project. If you live and grow in a low-zone area of the world, I do not recommend pruning the plants once you've hardened them off and moved them outside. This may stunt their ability to produce fruit for you and will negate the benefits of pruning. The exception is growing in zones with long enough seasons to accommodate the recovery and growth. Areas such as the southern United States or tropical Australia fall in this category. Peppers will branch by themselves once they hit maturity, marked by the flowers coming out. You can continue to prune them and shape them to strengthen the plant. Some of the added benefits of pruning is not only a quicker, larger yield, as I mentioned before, but the plant is much more stable. These plants were not pruned and are doing fine, however they would not be able to hold the same volume of crop as their pruned sisters. Moving forward, based on our experiences in the past, I will start my peppers on December 1st, based on the last frost date of May 5th. You may want to adjust your schedule based on your last frost date. Every time I up pot to a maximum of a 3 to 4 gallon pot or 11 to 15 liter pot. I'll burr the stem a little bit further down. This will move the main root ball lower into the soil, assisting in its ability to get water in those hot summer days. Of added benefit, new roots will come from the main stalk as well. I will do this no more than 2 to 3 centimeters each time, avoiding burying the first Y caused by the initial pruning. Potting soil. If available, I'll mix 1/2 worm castings and 1/2 absorbent potting mix. Things such as coconut coir and peat moss will wake up the water, allowing you to bottom water while leaving sufficient air in the soil to allow for good microbe growth. The worm castings are full of nutrients and growth hormones for the plants and beneficial bacteria. If you happen to get a worm or two in your pot, consider yourself lucky, as they will continue to work hard to keep your soil and plant healthy. I'm going to aim for 4 pruning sessions, pruning back to the last set of leaves on each main stalk each time. This will create a low center of gravity. Branches that are crossing back over the center and do not grow away from it will be removed to prevent damage when the plant has fruit on it. Any leaves below the first Y will be removed in order to increase airflow and lower the chances of disease. Bottom watering will also help keep the plant healthy by not keeping the top soil and the bottom leaves moist so disease vectors can get established. You know it's time to pot when the roots start to show through the holes in the container. I recommend gradually upsizing the container to avoid watering and feeding soil that does not have roots in it. The last pruning will be at the beginning of March to allow at least 2 months to put on as much green growth as possible. I found, with a lack of time to recover from the last pruning I did and setting fruit as soon as it went outside, the plant did not get much larger in the garden. The larger plant should be able to hold more fruit next year. While inside, I'll continue to remove the flowers to prevent fruit from setting. You can fertilize using compost teas if you have them available. They not only provide easily available food for the plant, but microorganisms that improve the soil and provide more available nutrients to the plant. Organic fertilizers can be used. I recommend applying either on a weekly basis or when watering is needed. With the medium-sized peppers I enjoy, trellising will be required on a larger plant. I will likely use 3 to 4 bamboo poles, attaching them into teepee, to support the plant while it fruits. When I select a spot for the pepper bush next year, I will again look for a location with maximum exposure and heat. I will make sure not to plant them around things like this indeterminate tomato that is shading this year's pepper plant. Finally, feeding. When the pepper bush sets fruit, it needs to be fed. Healthy soil and mulch layers, combined with compost teas and extractions, I found, have been the best way to do this. In order to keep up with the large demands, I double my application rate to twice a week. Most peppers will change colors when fully ripe. This is when the pepper has the maximum nutrients, and if you're growing hot peppers, the maximum heat. I choose to harvest my peppers when the peppers are starting to change colors so that I can harvest earlier and try to squeeze in a second crop of the year. In order to save your progress from the last year, you can overwinter peppers. You'll want to prune them back down to the main structure in the fall, treating for pests that once inside may cause issues. I will not be doing this, as I chose to plant mine directly into the garden bed, and will likely try this with another variety this winter. Overwintering pepper plants inside can be a bit tricky, so I recommend doing your research before attempting. Finally, pest management inside is something you'll need to keep an eye on. Outside in your garden, for the most part, you have a healthy community of both pests and predators that keep each other in check. Inside, without the predators, the pests can take over. If you do develop a pest problem, there are a number of organic ways you can treat it. I typically start with manual removal and move up from there. If you would like to just get a jump on the season, this can be boiled down to a 1 prune method. Starting your seeds on February 1st, you can prune once, allowing the remainder of the time for recovery and hardening off. If you decide to follow along, I would love to see how you do. Make sure you tag me so that I can keep up to date with your posts. I appreciate you spending time with me today, and I hope you have a fantastic day.